Morning, guys. Wednesday, the 27th. William here with Patriot Containers. I've made a six-part series of all six conditions of what containers are inspected for and how us companies purchase containers. How what the companies purchase you is what they do on their end. With what I purchase you is what I don't sell, and with what I do sell, and then all my paperwork matches, so you get the proper container upon delivery. You don't get bait and switched. Um, in that six-part series, I've gone over damaged, I've gone over as is, I've gone over wind and watertight. The wind and watertight container, I think out of all my videos that I've been making, that's the most educational one. That, and for some reason, the video of why I'm exposing the cargo container industry, that one just got over 600 views in like 3 days. So we got damaged, as is, wind and watertight, cargo worthy, and IICL. I don't sell damaged, I don't sell as is, and I don't sell wind and watertight. And the reason being is all three of those containers look like shit. And if I sell that to you, you will be an unhappy customer, and I would have complaints all over the internet. I used to sell wind and watertight and as is 11 to 9 years ago when I first started my business. And when you purchase a container based off of price alone, you're going to get a bad container. Now, you're going to run into companies that don't tell you it's bad and they mislead you with lack of information or lies. And then they show up with a horrible product. Some companies sell wind and watertight but deliver damage than as is. That's how you guys get whole containers with holes and damage, and then their warranty is not covered. So, really quick about me, I always say this in every video because I want to kind of treat these videos as if you're a first-time viewer to my channel, and you haven't seen all my other videos. So I've been selling containers for 13 years. I used to work for companies that were horrible 13 years ago, and I know exactly how bad companies are run, and companies now are getting worse than they were 13 years ago. When I started my business, it's always a shady business. There's more bad there's more bad container sellers than good container sellers. I consider myself to be a very good, honest company that does the right thing for their customers and always puts their customers first. I started my business 11 years ago, and in those 11 years, up until yesterday, I used to say I have 3 complaints of 3 people that never bought a container from me. If you clearly read them, you'll read that they never bought a container. I noticed I had a complaint yesterday from somebody I never talked to, somebody I never sold to, and most likely works for one of these companies that I'm exposing. And these companies that I'm exposing, they do not want you to see my videos. If you actually watch my videos, yeah, I kind of have this feeling like if people actually watch my videos, they'll probably buy from me. If they don't, they're gonna buy from one of these bad companies. So these aren't sales pitch videos of call Patriot Containers. These are videos where I am sick and tired of this industry getting worse and worse and worse. And I'm the only one on YouTube making videos like this, and exposing all the wrongdoings. These companies have terms and conditions on their website where if you don't read it, you're kind of screwed, because what they're telling you to sell you a container, and it's not to sell you, it's to close you, to make it an emotional purchase and feel safe and secure, when they're actually the worst companies to buy from. That's it. This video is the final video to my 6-part series of what a new one-trip container is. These are the best containers you can buy in America. I have talked to people more than 20, where, Us companies call it new because it's the newest thing that you can buy. There's nothing newer. You could have $1 million to spend on your container. You're not going to get a nicer container. This is it. This is the best of the best. So the reason they're called one trips is because they don't go back and forth on the oceans. They're 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 manufactured overseas. They get loaded with one cargo load, and they come over to our country, they're unloaded, and they never go back onto a ship. The reason why they look different is because they're not the typical shipping line colors. They can be beige, which is a light ivory color. They can be sometimes a yellowish tan color. Sometimes they can be like a concrete gray. Sometimes they can be a dark gray. They every once in a while you will see a new one that's kind of like a blue or a red color. Those are what's called new one trip lease models. And if you do find a new one trip that is in that color, it's going to be sold for three or to $500 cheaper than the beige ones. 95% of the time, a new one trip will have a lockbox already installed from the factory to where you don't have to put a lock on the handles. You can reach up underneath it and lock your container. These containers will have the nicest flooring, the nicest door seals, the nicest hinges that are very easy to open, and the nicest exterior and interior paint. Um, I I talk to people that when I'm talking to them and I don't know if they want a new or used one, and they go, "Well, I'm gonna paint it anyways, the color I want." 90% of the time, they want it to be that beige tan color, anyways. So, depending on how much work you want to put into a used container painting it, sometimes it's best to just buy a new one. People that buy new containers, it's impossible for them to be unhappy. It's the best. I have seen complaint videos and complaints on people that have bought, and not complaints on my business, but complaints on the competitors that I'm exposing, where people have bought new containers, and for some reason there's some type that there's damage on it, or that something's wrong. I don't know how those companies bought that container. My sellers and the shipping lines I buy my new one trips from don't have those problems. So, however, they're getting damaged new ones, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't care because I wouldn't buy it anyways. Why? Here's the thing: when customers like yourself spend top dollar on new containers, you're going to be happy. Why on earth would you want to screw that up? I treat every customer as a possibility of a repeat buyer and free referrals. If you do everything right, good container, new or used, delivered on the right day, communication great, no lies, all truth. If you can pull all that off, you will have no complaints. You will have repeat business. You will have free referrals. You don't have to pay customers for referrals. The customers want to be happy. Now, when you're buying a new one trip, I say this, it's psychological, because I talk to a lot of people that want used containers. And then I go, okay, well, what do you want it to look like? Which is a question no other company is going to ask you. What do you want it to look like? All the other companies are going to ask you, how do you want it to function? Do you want the not to leak and the doors to shut, right? Well, that's not a description of what this container can look like. You can find a rusty old piece of junk where it doesn't leak and the door shut, but you're not going to be happy. The typical response from somebody that wants I ask how, if they're talking about used, and I go, what do you want it to look like? Well, I want it to be tan with no dents and no scrapes, and I want it to be perfect. You're buying the wrong container. You're describing a new one. You want a new one to be tan. Used containers are going to be shipping line colors. They're going to be burgundy red. They're going to be red. They're going to be blue. They're going to be aqua. They're going to be orange. They're going to be yellow, sometimes a light gray. But you're going to have shipping line logos all over these containers, and they're not one trips. They've been on the ocean many times, sometimes too much. Sometimes you can buy a used container that can look really, really nice. It's still used, but it's not a new one. New ones, how do I say this? So over the years of 13 years of selling containers, I've heard it all. And sometimes I actually hear new things where I'm like, wow, I've never heard that before. And I'm amazed. But I have heard people say, well, we sell two trippers. There is no such thing as a two tripper. When somebody says they have something that's like new, it's either one trip or it's used. So if they're telling you it's like new, they want you to hear new, but they're really selling you a used container. You cannot mix a new one trip with a used container. It's not even close to being in the same category. So ideally, if Patriot Containers could just change every customer that called me, I would say, yes, I want every customer to buy a new one tripper. That would be great. When you're buying a new one tripper, part of me wants to say, if it's truly a new perfect container, why would you pay a little bit more from another company versus another company? And I'll tell you why. Some of these companies take 1 to 3 months to deliver, and they have cancellation fees. They have restocking fees. They do everything wrong after your order. So they might eventually show up with a better container, but you're going to get a horrible experience. Patriot Containers does not do this to you guys. When you buy something from me, because I'm not an employee, I'm not a salesperson, I'm a business owner, I have to get on another phone and call my driver and go, look, I got this 20 or 40 foot container. You're picking it up here and I need it delivered on this date. What day can you do it? And you can actually, I put my customers on speaker and I put my drivers on speaker, and you're going to hear that person, male or female, tell me with what day your container will actually be there. Salespeople that are promising nationwide, most reviewed, lifetime warranties, all these 30, 60-day full refunds, those are the worst companies to buy from. Those are salespeople that do not have the abilities to actually call their drivers and figure out when your container is going to get there. So typically companies like that will tell you, well, we have free next day delivery on all August. It's impossible to do that. It just doesn't happen. That in itself is a lie. If you sell 100 containers or 1,000 containers in a month, you're probably going to get 1 or 2 that's delivered next day. Everybody else was lied to. But yeah, but when you're buying a used container, and I don't want to talk about used too much because we're talking about new one trip, there's so many different conditions that I don't recommend buying from the most shady company that's going to give you the cheapest price on a used container, because most likely it's going to be damaged or as is. They're going to sell it to you as when watertight. So you really want to deal with a company that is telling you the truth, not overselling, not giving you all these flashy signs to make you buy from them, because their terms and conditions are going to screw you over as a customer. Back to new one trips. These are the best. I've had customers say, well, and I don't know if these are customers or competitors calling to be combative. They go, well, it's not really a new container. It's been on the ocean once. Yes, that's true. But when you see it compared to a used container, it's as new as it's going to get, and you can't get it any better than with what that is. If you were to get your own boat and sail to China, and then they put that container on your boat and bring it back, it's still a one trip container. So yeah, you cannot, like the other day I had a customer, and I'm actually delivering them tomorrow, and they wanted a used container, but I was going to sell them a good used container. And while I was taking their order, the wife got on the phone and started asking me questions about the new ones. I right then and there knew that they wanted a new one. They're just buying a used one. Well, my profit on the new one was 600 and my profit on the used one was 500. So I did the right thing, and I laid it all on the table. I said, "Hey, look, this is my cost on my used one. Here's what I'm selling it for. Here's my cost on the new one. Here's what I'm selling it for you. I'm making more money on the new one. Uh, I'll knock off that $100 because I'm going to make 500 or 500. I want them to buy the new container. I want my customers to buy containers that it's what you want and what you're not going to be mad at. They weren't going to be mad at my used container. It was going to be a good one, but they wanted a new one. So I think they spent $950 more on a new container. When that container arrives, and I actually took the order yesterday, or maybe hold on. No, I took the order on Monday night. We're delivering tomorrow on Thursday. So I took the order actually at like 9 p.m. my time, and technically that's a Tuesday order. So the payment was ran on Tuesday. It was scheduled on Tuesday, and we're going to deliver 48 hours later. And we'll be delivering that container tomorrow. I should have a video of it up on YouTube. I think it's going to Live Oak. And my point being is they spent $950 more versus a good used one and a new one. A lot of customers can't justify the price difference. And I understand that. I really, really do. People want to buy a container and save as much money. I don't apply that method to used containers. The thing is, though, that $950 more, when that container arrives tomorrow to Live Oak on their property, they're not going to even question that $950 more. They are going to be such a happy customer that they're going to go, "Oh wow, I'm so glad I bought this." And listening to the wife, she was like, "Well, this is going to be our permanent container forever. We're going to use it forever. We're not ever moving. We're going to retire in this house." I knew that they bought the right container for the rest of their life. They're going to have a new, beautiful one-trip container on their property, and as long as I show up with that container tomorrow, which I am, I have a customer for life. And I also, when somebody comes by and goes, "Wow, where'd you get that? I want one," they're going to give my number, William Smith's number of Patriot containers, and I'm going to get free referrals from that person for the rest of my life. That also would have happened if I showed up with a good used one, but I keyed in that they actually wanted a new one, and I did with what's right with lowering my price and my profit on a new one, and they got the container they wanted. And to be honest, I think I didn't even have to lower my price, but I did it anyways, which sometimes I'm a dumb salesperson, but it's all about what's right for the customer. So if you're looking for the best container, let's say you have Mercedes, let's say you have Ferrari, let's say you have BMWs, let's say you have a $1 million beautiful house, don't buy a used container. It's not going to look nice. Buy a new one and call it a day, and know that container is going to be the most superior container that you can buy. And then there's people that have low standards. They don't want to buy a new one, and I totally understand that. I just want to sell used containers that people like versus don't like. And I don't want to use lies and sales pitches to sell it to you. But yes, new containers. This is the final video of my 6-part series. New containers are the best. They're called one trippers. They don't have shipping logos on them. They will have a container number on it. They're typically tan, light beige, concrete gray, slate gray, and every once in a while they'll have some funky colors that might cost a little less than the regular colors, but they're not always available. But yeah, new ones are the best. I always tell people, don't say no. Just don't buy it. If you say no, you're closing the door to the best container. Consider your options, because it really is psychological on a new container. They do cost more. But when you buy it and it arrives, you're not going to have any regrets on your purchase. You are going to be the happiest customer out there, as long as the container shows up on the right day. And I'm talking about the other companies, because the other bad companies that I rag on in this industry that I'm exposing, they do sell one trippers. I have seen complaints on people that bought new containers and they screwed it up. And that's what they do. They're professionals, people that can't run a business correctly, and they'll take an order and just run it into the ground, and there's nothing you can do about it because they have cancellation fees, restocking fees. They don't honor their warranties. They don't honor their 30, 60, 90-day refunds. It's all bullshit. You have to read these terms and conditions on these companies. But anyways, finalizing this video, new ones, they are the best. They are called one trippers. You will not regret your purchase if you just pay the extra money. And I wish everybody bought new containers, and they don't. About, I normally say 20% of people buy new. I think it's like 30. Sometimes I even think, because this month I sold a lot of new containers. Maybe this month I sold, half, 50% new and 50% used. But there are good used containers. They're not called wind and watertight. They're called cargo worthy or IICO, and they look good for being used containers, but they are used. They are not new, and you cannot get these close together. New is all by itself. It's the best, and you should consider buying it. But I understand if you want to save some money and go with the used one. I just don't recommend buying junky used ones from whoever gives you the cheapest price, because you're going to find yourself in a pickle and in a mess where you have no control of how they run their business, and you have no control of how you get your money back. They will screw you over. Anyways, guys, that's it. New ones are the best. I always highly advise people buying them, but I do understand if you want to save the money. Now, again, buy a good used container if you're not going to buy a new one. All right, guys, have a good one. Thursday the 27th, and we'll see how today goes to see if I make another video. Have a great one. Bye.